It's 7:03, 7:05. Let's call the meeting to order. Finance Committee has a quorum. Everyone want to say yay?
Yay.
So we have new members. Have we met this year, really? Or I guess we have. Mike, I don't think you were
I have
here.
not. I'll be.
You haven't been here.
You would town meeting.
Yes,
You were
town meeting was the
Yep.
last.
Yeah, so is your work getting interfering?
It is, it is. I
It was a little
explaining-
last
I was
year.
explaining to some of the folks
Yeah.
here that I'm in the process of trying to hire some new staff and actually replace myself. I've,
That's good.
taken over the
Wow.
reins of my boss and now trying to replace myself and hire a controller, so.
And now are you going to be able to donate your time still?
I'll still be able to donate my time, especially once
Do
I
we
get
have
a
to increase your
controller on
pay?
board. Huh?
Do we have to increase your
Yeah,
pay?
it would be great if the town could double what they pay me now, but,
We can multiply it by 0.
okay. Zero times zero is still zero, right? Okay.
Why don't we double it?
We'll double it. I'd go for that. Sounds like we
What
have
physics you
an executive. We have an executive amongst us now. Well, congratulations on your new, I guess, really doing well.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's excellent, Mike. Good age to do it too. Super. We haven't met. We didn't meet 2 weeks ago because we did not have a quorum. So we have essentially the same agenda as a couple of weeks ago. We're going to cross off the revenue estimates because Governor Baker is sharpening his pencil as we speak, I think, tonight. Or did he pass them out this past weekend? Did you go to Boston for the MMA?
No.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No, they usually give us a preview there. It's usually one of the first seminars at MMA.
Right.
I didn't go. I mean, to be honest, I didn't think it was the best use of
Time.
time and energy last year.
Oh,
We've
that's
been
you were
invited
here
to a
last year.
Conference call, was it?
I'm sorry, you were here last year. I'm thinking this is your first year. I don't know why. Silly goose.
So we were invited to a conference call with the governor. I don't know if I participated or not.
Okay.
But
Good.
Wednesday, we should get the numbers anyways. At the end of the day, Wednesday.
Sure.
Tomorrow Wednesday or next Wednesday?
Is tomorrow
Tomorrow.
Wednesday?
Yeah,
Then, yeah, I think
okay,
I'm a day off
yeah,
for the
sure,
holiday.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a little funky.
okay.
Well, good. I guess we could talk a little bit. How did we make out with the snow removal? Everybody's saying it was pretty good, but it was tough on my driveway. How'd the
This
town
was a
make
tough
out?
storm. It was a long siege.
Yeah.
The director estimates, because we...
Director,
The
highway superintendent? Okay, sorry. I thought we hired somebody else and I was gonna go, no!
The superintendent estimates, preliminary estimate, don't write this number down in permanent
Okay.
ink anywhere, but it was about a $44,000 storm. It's been
It's
a
a
mild
chunk.
winter to this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So we are, and remember, we did increase the snow and ice budget last year. So we are still well within
Good.
tolerances there, so.
But this was
I think
took
that
a
was,
chunk.
this weekend was the 11th, may have been the 11th storm event that he's responded to. Because
Sure.
remember,
Yeah.
when the police call, he responds, but those are spot drops, they're not
Sure.
full drops.
Okay.
So we're okay there.
Good, good, good. Well, let's move right on to the town administrator reports, Matt, and please add anything that you need to add in there. I broke it down to budget, personnel, capital projects. If you want to cross one off or
Well, even
not
though
discuss it,
we had a
that's
little bit
fine.
of a briefing last week, I still think I should go back over those things primarily this
Mm-hmm.
evening, so that if anybody had any questions or wanted to discuss it, now they can. We have a preliminary estimate of our renewal with Harvard Pilgrim was a premium increase of 11.8%, which is a substantial increase. We are looking at, we've had 2 out of 3 meetings now to settle a proposed regional or joint purchasing group. We only found out yesterday that Blue Cross Blue Shield will not bid. So we have to,
They're not going to play that game?
yeah, funny how that works, huh? When you're
Gee.
the incumbent and you're killing people, financially speaking. So they're probably going to try to use their political muscle to create whatever impediments.
To disallow
Oh, yeah.
joint purchasing
Or
groups
to-
for health
to-
insurance.
To make it harder politically for the leadership and the two biggest groups that they already have. So the conversation has occurred between the Dudley Charlton School District, the towns of Douglas, Millbury, Southbridge, and Webster. Webster and Dudley Charlton are Blue Cross Blue Shield clients, and by far the two biggest groups in the joint purchasing group. So but they're already self-insured as well, so it's a little bit of an odd thing that Blue Cross wouldn't bid to keep their own business through the BVA, so it's very odd. But bids were solicited twice now, so the first time Blue Cross simply let the deadline pass without explanation. The bids were reposted, and then this time they explicitly said they will not bid, so.
Okay.
Everybody from the first round bid again the second time, and they have no reason to believe they changed their number.
And who are the other carriers?
We got a lot of interest. I mean, originally, the original feedback was everyone who plays in the state other than Cigna and Blue Cross.
Right.
I think that's where we are now. So
So you have United in there.
United, Fallon,
Harvard Pilgrim.
Harvard Pilgrim,
Tufts.
Tufts. I know they definitely responded. United, I'm not so sure. I don't remember the.
What's the other one
saying
listed?
United,
Fallon.
Fallon.
But Fallon definitely.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll have a conversation. That meeting is the 24th, which is Thursday. We'll be having some conversation.
Okay.
But primarily the interest point right now is the governance model and how that will come about. So that's where we are with that. I have some preliminary indication that even though we are already the most modest offeror of health insurance in that group of 5, that we still might get some upside potential. In fact, I would think that without Blue Cross in the mix, our upside potential through Harvard Pilgrim would be even greater, because they're looking at us. So the group as it's currently constituted, if it stays together, is over 1,500 beneficiaries, over 1,500
Clients, whatever.
members.
Sure.
So the beneficiary number is up around 3,500 or so. That's a so-called national account, which allows us to just exploit some pricing changes that we wouldn't get just bidding the business as Douglas. So on the other front, our existing broker is putting our business out to bid as Douglas. So we're trying to cover every single front here, not just take the renewal. I'm only moderately optimistic. I would like to see us just get to the market trend and be able to hold market for 2, 3, 4 years, because then it becomes a very predictable thing and almost manageable thing. It's when we have this volatility
Sure.
and in the grand scheme of things, I want to avoid any credibility traps around our claims, and just, if we could stick with Harvard Pilgrim, in many ways it would be perfect for us, because we're still not 100% credible in our claims, which
Matt,
hurts us.
how does that 11.8% compare to other years? Has it been around 10% the last few years, or
Last
has
year,
it-
what exactly?
has it been a real yo-yo?
It was 11, it was a little over 11 last year,
Okay.
and then that was before me. But you had you had 1 year of decrease when you left
We
Blue
did.
Cross and went to the high deductible
Yeah.
HSA plan.
Yeah, we had a 5% decrease. They were quoting at a 17.9, if I remember correctly, Blue Cross, and we made a change to Harvard Pilgrim, and that's when we went to the high deductible plan. So we made a very big switch, and we thanked the employees for working with us to do that switch, because the high deductible plan within HSA was a big change for us on the health insurance, just the program itself.
Does the town fund the HSA?
We fund half. It's a $4,000 deductible, we fund half. But the first year going in, you had no funding. If you had a claim at the beginning of the year, you had to come up with the, you know, it's a family, you had to come up with the $4,000. So
Right.
it was a big change for the employees.
So have we maintained that?
We currently have that.
Even with this 11.8, we're still doing
Correct.
half? Okay.
Correct.
When will we learn about what that increase will be?
Well, right now,
Well, it's-
what's 11.8% of
Number
what?
on the table, that we could sign tomorrow and it would take effect. When did, USI said they'd be back to us February 7th, I believe, with the next step on their end, bidding Douglas out individually.
Okay.
And I think we're within a couple of weeks. Gallagher will open the bids for us and we'll go through. The analysis we're asking Gallagher to do, Gallagher's the big, large company that took over Group Benefit Strategies, which was
Okay.
the original point of contact here. The one thing I've been adamant about is that we must have the same plan design. There's a lot of detailed analysis that goes through that. But I don't want to come back to our employees and say we've changed anything unless I have a really good explanation. So they need to go through all the plan documents, be very, very specific and detail-oriented, which they've pledged to do. So
You have to understand, Douglas is one of the only communities
we're a progressive community. We're way ahead of everybody else.
that has a high deductible plan as a sole option.
Yep.
Other communities have it as an option.
They have like one of 3 plan choices.
Right, but it's, you know, like I said, it was an impact on the employees.
It's just so, I know.
Also saved the town,
We did say the
quote
town.
unquote, saved the
We
town.
also did implement a couple other things too. We have a waiver and an opt-out program now, so that if you're on somebody else's, spouse's insurance someplace else, and you were on our plan for over a year, then there's an incentive for you to leave our plan and join theirs.
Yep.
So we've worked on the health insurance for a number of years.
I guess my question is, for budgeting purposes, when will we know what that increase will be?
The next time you meet, we should have a pretty solid sense.
Okay. And I know here, your notes say that your forecast ran on 8% year-over-year projections. What's the differential between an 8 and an 11.8? For a cost
Well, not
difference?
to be crass, but it's 33% of the change added.
Yep, sure.
So, I don't know the health insurance off the top of my head. I'm taking a page from.
Is it $1.5 million or is it 2 million?
Full numbers.
Yeah, that's okay.
But just bear in mind, it's one of the largest
It is.
spending
Oh, yeah.
accounts.
That's kind of why I'm trying to understand, where does that money come from in our budget? The increase, the 1/3 over the 8% projected versus 11.8 reality. Where do we get that money from? Does it get forced to cut other budget areas? Does it come from free cash?
Well, the piece
Is
of
it a-
pie is only so big.
Yeah,
And the increase is only one piece of the health insurance. The other
Yep.
piece we have to look at is the census.
Yep.
Where do we stand against last year's numbers? So
Yep.
that we're working on that now, so that I can give Matt, this is the number of lives that we have with the
Okay.
11.8. So there's 2 components to that.
so when do we see that pie piece cutting into the other pieces? When do we first see that math?
Fiscal '21.
No, I mean for fiscal '20, when do we first see it?
Keep in mind that we had a lot of our financials went into capital projects last year, so we do have additional money that is probably available to pay additional.
That's not my question.
Okay.
Yeah. When will this group first see how the new budget's looking to be cut up?
Oh,
Well,
gotcha.
Different question. Well, I think we have to get through this material tonight before we can, spend a lot of time on that. I'm hoping in the next 2 weeks.
That's my
The
question.
problem I'm having is I keep getting drama from various quarters.
Okay.
So I'm putting the fires out. We're adding numbers as we go along. So we've made a number of adjustments. I think last time I discussed, did I mention we'll take 1 year where we look at new growth in a slightly more aggressive fashion. And we usually budget 80,000 for new growth. We already know from the pipeline that that's just way too low. So we'll budget 125, which is still very conservative compared to what we think the result will be. But so that's what I'm doing, Howard. Right now, I'm going through these numbers. I am reluctant to even talk about the final revenue picture until I see the governor's budget, at least estimated, because on the Chapter 70 piece, it really does a lot for us. I don't expect a lot of change in pilot. We have a preliminary indication from DCR or DOR, whoever's going to be signing off on that. There's been some acreage changes it's like a .033 uptick for the town. They must have bought some land, or it's all real small changes. But Chapter 70 is a big deal, what they do with it. And there's one critical piece that I want to make sure everybody's, I need to test a few ideas before I can publish a budget that includes an assumption about how the override's being rolled into the budget for next year.
Matt, I'm just trying to get an idea. I know we've got new members, and even, I know for me, multiple years through the system, just trying to get an idea of the macro as we look at micro pieces. Yeah.
And what we try to do first is to look at those fixed costs. So BVT, Norfolk Aggie, health insurance,
Yeah.
property liability
Yeah.
insurance, school bus transportation. Those pieces have to come in, and, we start these budget conversations in mid-January,
Yeah.
but we don't really have those numbers until February. So and we're doing a lot of what-ifs at this point, but until mid-February,
Fair enough.
you're,
I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah,
what I'm
no,
seeing. Where does it fit in?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've disclosed some assumptions that I'm still working with.
Great.
We've told the school committee that they need to prepare 2 budgets, one with a 1%, another with a 2%, try to see how that plays out programmatically
Great.
for them to understand. We're waiting for BVT. We know that we have a 5% increase in census there, because that's an October number. It's already known.
Sure.
What will his run rate be? So last year was 4.5. I'm assuming, for the sake of budget modeling, a 9, that maybe he gets his 4.5 down to a 4.
Should be
It's
less
within
than
the
that.
ballpark.
Yeah.
School bus transportation is a very big figure, has a substantial impact, also because it has gone up so rapidly the last couple of years. It's out to bid right now.
Okay.
So as a big piece of information that we may
Okay.
not be able to circle the wagons on until February.
Okay.
Norfolk, we are cautiously optimistic that we've had a couple of graduations. We haven't had a lot of new enrollment, so we're hoping we're okay there. That comes over onto our side. I gave department heads instructions this week on fuel. We have a consultant, Tradition Energy, that consults us primarily on our electricity purchasing, and as you recall from Fall Town Meeting, we have a 5-year buy forward on electricity at a locked-in price. They also advise on gasoline, diesel, and home heating fuel prices. We're looking at a very strangely positive and good news trend there, because the world economy is slowing, and the oil-producing countries of the world have been producing for a much more rapidly growing economy. So we have an existing supply glut. The forecast is for as much as an 11.5% decrease from this year's prices for vehicle fuels.
Okay.
What I've told the department heads to do is do not forecast any decrease, but you may budget with no increase.
Okay.
Because originally we were expecting a 7.5% increase in the cost of gasoline and diesel. We're going to ramp that back, hold it at a 0, but we won't budget in any downside, because that's not going to be permanent. It's not going to stay. So
Yeah, sure.
that's a lot of the major components. Now, as for policy components that we will keep in place, we will try to budget to keep steps in place for municipal employees. predominantly because so many of our people are already at the top step that it's not that large of an expenditure. But morale-wise, it's kind of a big deal. We want to hold our COLAs to what we negotiated with our collective bargaining units. So I'll never make a mystery of this. They're getting 1.75. We would like it to be the same across the board for everyone, 1.75. That's the operating budget number. So all these numbers are coming
Yeah,
together. And as you know, once you get down to the bottom, and you bottom of the flow chart, and you start talking what's left for expenses, there's not gonna be a lot of wiggle room one way or the other. And we try to save everywhere we can, and we've identified a few places where we've been successful, but other than reorganization, there's not a lot of opportunities for us to save.
Okay.
Minimum wage increased as of January 1st. That
Yep,
went up to $12.
yep.
It's scheduled to go up again next. So we do have some on the, there's a minimum wage scale, so that
Sure.
will, I don't know what's going to happen as they creep up to the $15 to the other
Right.
steps and grades, because now you're getting closer to what we have for our town employees, but that's a conversation for another day.
So Matt, you've listed a lot of things. Jean, you just mentioned something important. Do we have it? Do we have that in printed form? Your anticipated changes, your assumptions, for instance.
I can get that to you.
That would be helpful for us. And that way we can follow along. Now, I anticipate that we're going to be getting budgets in budget form, in book form. We did not have that last year, and I particularly missed it. I think the Finance Committee needs to have something in print. So I'd anticipate looking forward to when we can get that.
You already volunteered earlier today to answer that.
You volunteered, Jean.
She did. I'm not going to let her run away
Pick me,
now.
pick me. I did. What I volunteered to do, Matt's going to give me his Excel. I'm going to throw it into Munis, and then I will do the budget books as you have been used to seeing them. Probably
Very
get
helpful.
those probably the beginning of February.
Okay. I think I have a few still books, empty books to bring
So
back.
if you have them, bring them back. We'll set up the tabs for you. So then you get some of a history. Matt's spreadsheet is excellent, though.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know you've asked me for electronic version a number of years.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
we can give you the printed version, but
Well, the spreadsheet gives us in total. The budget book will give us the individual departments.
His
I
does as
really
well.
like the
Mine does as
bottom
well.
line, too.
He
be able
does
to
as
look-
well.
Sure.
But if that's what you would like, then
Actually,
we'll
it's
be-
beyond crazy what you see
Yeah.
with mine. If I unlock all the sheet, as far as
Right.
I'm concerned, it's a public document.
Yeah.
Have at it.
Yeah.
Just, if the version control stays here.
Yep. Yeah.
And at the end of the day,
No.
we'll press a button and that'll become what goes into the warrant.
Right.
Because it will filter back to the format that people are used to seeing
Yep.
in the warrant. But I've added things to it. So there's a personnel roster. It drives all the compensation accounts
So you've got them all
by the
linked.
employee's
Good.
name, their grade, their step,
Nice.
number of weeks in a year,
Yep.
and it's all transparent. You can see exactly what's going on where.
Nice.
That's always, I can distribute that.
Okay.
Always, the caveat is garbage in, garbage out.
Yep,
If you
sure.
decide you want to play with a scenario and you forget to
Yeah,
change it,
Right.
You're working with a set of numbers that are off.
Hot numbers.
Yeah. Everything is flexible, so it's infinitely flexible. You can, and that's both a blessing and a curse.
Sure.
So we'll make sure we update versions and tell you what changes there are, but
It
Has
is-
the number of people on our town health insurance changed much over the years? Has it gone up or down much?
Well, it's mostly the school.
Is a,
10%, 5%, 20%?
We've changed the number of
I'm going to be
public
looking at the
safety.
census for this year. We did, with the override, we did have new employees at the school. The other thing that we are finding is that people are aging off their parents' health insurance. So we are seeing
really?
school teachers.
yeah. So, you hire them at 23 years old,
Right.
now they're 26 and they have to come on the town's
Yeah,
health
yeah.
insurance. So, but again, we'll be providing a census for Matt so we can calculate.
Now, having said that, because this is the third municipality that I've had insight into enrollment, Douglas is pretty far ahead in terms of waivers and opt-outs
Oh, yeah.
from what I've seen in the past. That might modify or moderate somewhat as the market catches up to the plan offering that Douglas. Because now
Right, the comparison will,
Right, there's a big differential
Eventually.
between my wife's plan and what I'm offered in Douglas, so I stay on my wife's plan. But as her plan morphs more and more and more to become like what we
Yep.
have here, then a differential will be different and depends on outlook of employment. Everybody makes their own individual choice. But the opt-out and waiver program is very robust.
So earlier you mentioned how we're progressive compared to others. Is there like a third-party resource you guys lean on for some of these ideas, or do you cook them up yourself over coffee?
Some of what we're,
Why are we ahead of the game, in other words?
well, the necessity was the mother
Yep.
of invention
Okay.
in Douglas, for sure.
Okay.
Going forward, it's less about necessity and more about trying to be smarter than the traditional market. There's some risk of talking like this, but, you know, suits in high-rise buildings in Boston making decisions about what they're gonna charge you was an acceptable thing for a long time because the rates kind of bubbled along and it was what it was. It wasn't that expensive. And the benefits, you know, just the cost of healthcare has gone up so much that to be quote-unquote progressive means that you're pushing back against a lot of those just built-in assumptions. So for example, we guffawed. Jean was very polite in the way she
Jean never
way
guffaws.
she guffawed, but I wasn't. You know, before pooling, our loss ratio was 95.5. After pooling, it was 87.7. And they're trying to pass along an 11.8. And then they look at you and say, you deserve a double-digit increase with experience like that. And I just laughed out loud. In Rhode Island, you would be in the interlocal trust, which is a pretty significant insurance player, that would be ridiculously good performance. You should be at market. So when I tested that concept with our consultants who were putting together the joint purchasing group, we said, you're absolutely right. You could even negotiate to a 6 if you were in a good position.
And who are the consultants?
Gallagher.
Okay. And they're a pretty good outfit?
Yeah, they've been around for a long time. Group Benefit Strategy's been around for a long time. They have many joint purchasing groups across the Commonwealth. Interestingly enough, none in Worcester County. This is a first. So when we say we're progressive, yeah, we're ahead of the rest of Worcester County. We are working with some consultants that not on a paid basis, on an advisory basis, because what they're trying to do, it's a group that originated in Rhode Island but plays in quite a few places, called Nexus, which is, have you heard of them? It's massive database crunching is what it boils down to. Practice groups, especially specialists, pool their data to come up with optimal treatment paths and actually improve the quality of the service that's provided to our beneficiaries, because the communication is faster and more efficient. It actually generates healthcare savings because instead of making somebody wait for the specialist because you got to get an appointment, you wait a couple of weeks. Meanwhile, your condition worsens. And if your primary didn't order the right test, the specialist is ordering all the tests a second time or additional testing. So the way the database-based care paths should be working is there's instantaneous consultation between the primary and the specialist. Only the tests the specialist recommends are ordered.
So you don't double dip on the
And you are
testing.
in the specialist's office within 24 hours. That's a very different way to do care. And we're trying to, so what we've done is I've put Gallagher together with Nexus. So let's make our joint purchasing group one of the first ones that tries to build a Nexus network in Worcester to service our beneficiary group. So that's where being progressive now is going to go to how is information from the electronic patient care record, how is that informing better care choices
Wow.
And that's where the costs are going, that's the next step of getting cost out of the system. So we will push the envelope with those guys as best we can.
Why did you switch to Gallagher from the previous?
Gallagher bought Group Benefit Strategy.
Oh, okay. So it's still the same company?
Yes. We have all the same faces around the table.
All right.
They just have a much more,
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard of Gallagher, plenty. They have a bigger presence. Which is why we were surprised that Blue Cross didn't come to the table. Because their relationship with Gallagher is pretty good. The last thing I'll say, I guess, because I think it's relevant about joint purchasing groups, is that in self-insurance, primarily it's the self-insurance piece. Your pharmaceutical companies often provide rebates and other arrangements that when you're a fully insured client, your carrier pockets that, becomes part of what they take out of your business. When you're self-insured, you own that. So if you get a 17% break, you keep that. That carve-out, the pharmacy carve-out, is probably the single biggest reason we'll save money the first year we do this. It's a lot of work. I mean, it gets, that was the nutshell version. It's a lot of meetings to be able to do that nutshell.
Matt, one more question with regard to the budget, and I gather you've sent out your notices. Have you received all of the budgets from all departments, or are you having any
I broke it up.
difficulty?
I think I alluded to this last time. I've broken this up into compensation versus expenses.
Okay.
Compensation I view as being somewhat more fixed and not as easy to change. So what I've asked for is a personnel supplement in that sense. that
Changes to-
I would be publishing a separate document that is only the personnel piece of everybody's budget. It will account not only for spending, but it will also account for hours, volunteer hours and all the rest. Because the goal is to identify exactly how many person hours does it take to run the government. How much of that is filled with paid staff? And then what are the changes being made through the paid staff? It's a pretty big deal, for instance, if you have a very senior, I'll just use this as an example, because I think it's easy for people. A very senior police officer who may be at the very top step and has some education, maybe a master's degree. That individual retires, and now you have a new recruit with only a year. That's a big change in the personnel budget for the police department. It shouldn't necessarily drop to the expense line because it's not permanent.
Right.
Although you might want to give your director some leeway for a year or two. That's the kind of conversation we want to have up front. It's also where almost all the complexity is. So when they fill out all the personnel rosters and we get to a budget number for personnel, that's going to be the lion's share of the work. So you'll see that probably before you see the total bottom line, because the bottom line is the remainder. We'll go through the personnel budget with some detail before that.
Now, did you receive narratives from your departments as well?
Last year, yes.
Not this year.
This year, I haven't asked for them yet.
Oh, okay. Are you planning on it, or?
Not expecting the narratives to change that much.
Okay.
I put a
I
very
didn't know if
big-
there are any new initiatives coming up or whatever.
To keep your agenda moving, Madam Chair, I'll go to capital projects, because this is the segue. They've been
Well, let me
asked-
just say that I'd like the Finance Committee to have the original requests from the departments.
Yeah.
That's what we've had in the past, and it makes sense. Rather than seeing something that's been massaged, let's look at their request and what they think they need to run their department. Make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
so I don't see my role as to massage anything. So
Well,
I kind of give you the
it's-
unfiltered,
Okay.
but I
Nasty
do try to
truth.
set up their expectations, accordingly. If you can
Yep.
live within an expense budget increase of 1% and do what you need to do
Yeah.
with personnel, then the
Right.
conversation's over.
Right. I agree.
In terms of the workload we're putting on our department heads, capital projects is where it's coming. Capital Improvement Committee has met twice already. We've reviewed a template which is a capital improvement plan from the town of Munson, which isn't terribly far away. Very similar to Douglas in many ways in terms of population. Also in terms of the Chapter 70, which we're a little bit of an outlier, so is Munson. So we thought that since the Collins Center helped Munson write theirs, that we would see how to apply their template here and maybe improve on it. So the Capital Improvement Committee has reviewed it, they have made comments. Instructions have gone out from Chief Vinson for, what I asked for was, through the chief, with the chief's support, what is your ideal configuration for your department? Don't assume that you have to keep this legacy configuration. It's a bigger, in a larger town, this is a more important question, but even here, it still has applicability. I gave them the example of the town I grew up in. I changed the name, but I'll just use it. It was Cumberland. We had a mayor in Cumberland who thought, I'm going to solve all the town's problems by buying myself a great big 10-wheeler dump truck to plow snow. I'm going to replace all these little guys, right? It's a monster. It won't have to come back to the barn all the time for sand and salt. And we're going to save money and blah, blah, blah. The first storm I went out, it got stuck sideways on a hill and was out of commission for the entire storm. It's the wrong piece of equipment for the job. So that's what I'm asking, in the first instance or the first cut at this is, are you configured the way you need to be configured, or do you have too much legacy equipment beyond its useful life? You spend a lot of money to keep it going, and it isn't actually doing the job as efficiently as you can do it. Because as we plan for the future, you should be planning to change your fleet configuration to be ideal. That's step one. Step two is, where do you stand right now with the age of the fleet? Really, the town is not in bad shape. There are a couple of things that could stand to be changed at this point, but you're on a fairly healthy cycle. So what we're trying to do then is avoid spikes in capital spending and try to figure out what is the funding mechanism that will allow you to stabilize capital but keep capital in the budget and not neglect it. That's where you fall to
Yep.
pieces. Is when you don't.
That's because we don't have enough money. The end.
And the
Very
final
short
analysis-
story.
so
Connection with
When the
Munson.
times
Yeah,
gets up.
that's what goes.
Size.
It's always the
chapter
first thing that
70.
goes, and there is no stronger
looking at chapter
guarantee
70
that
right
you
here.
will fall further down the spiral in the toilet than to cut capital.
Yep.
You are far better off to bite the bullet and let some people go and reorganize some departments to save money than to not buy the things you need to do your job. That is absolutely terrible.
The iron continues to rust and the wood continues to rot.
Right.
And it only gets
Exactly.
worse.
Last year, I was so grateful to be gone from the town where I was before,
Yeah.
because I was very friendly with the DPW guy, and in the middle of a storm, he texted me and said, well, I started the day with 10 trucks, and I'm down to 1. Because they never bought a truck. So they're trying to fight a 10-inch snowstorm with 1 truck in a town that's 85 miles of road
Wow.
with 1 truck.
That's
And
probably
that
not
just-
going to work.
It's a service failure, but it was all the time and effort and money to repair all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Only to know that it's going to break down the very next
Yeah.
time you use it again.
Not going to last.
It really does. This really is not in that. You're not in that bucket at all. So the idea is to have a finalized capital project that informs the budget conversation going forward and plugs in a number early on in the analysis for the next 5 years. How much money will we take out of general revenue for a capital program? Because you can't count on free cash. If you can soak it up with free cash, fine. But the whole goal is to not be overly dependent upon something that is not guaranteed to be there. How's that for a segue?
Thank you.
So chapter 70 is money we get from the state,
That's your
Yes.
education aid, formula aid.
and when do we know that amount, for instance?
We'll have the governor's number.
That's part of the governor's
Yes.
thing.
Actually, is it, or
It's on the cherry sheet.
It's the end of, is it? Okay.
Oh, here
Yeah,
you
we'll
go,
have-
chapter
okay.
70, right here.
Yeah.
I thought it was later than that. I thought it was the end of
we'll
February
use the
by
the governor's.
the
numbers,
rules,
but
the
then-
written rules say, I think it's end of February. That's what Dr. Fitzpatrick goes by, I believe.
No, we won't, yeah,
I mean, those are the rules that he goes by.
What did Farrell used to say? So it is written, so shall it be.
Yep.
Did I just compare him to Farrell? Was that fair? He's not even here to defend himself.
That's okay. But you mentioned where his town where he lives, because he lives in Munson,
I
so.
know, very proud of it.
Yeah.
It's a good town.
Yeah.
Got hit by that tornado some years ago,
Yes,
though,
you
didn't
did.
they?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you something, if you look at their history since they've done their capital improvement plan, they've put in the capital policies and the free cash policies and everything else. It really is very successful. You know, they're making it work with a pretty narrowly defined budget. And it's a worthwhile example to follow.
Okay. So we're going to look back to how we closed FY '18. And I did pass this out last week. Not last week, 2 weeks ago.
yeah.
I don't know if you had a chance to look at it for those of you that were here.
Great bedtime reading.
Was it? Was it?
Anybody need one? Put you right to sleep.
Exactly.
Oh, whoa.
If I need to go to sleep.
Yeah. I do want to remind you that these are highlights only. They're not meant to add up. They're just strictly highlights on how we ended the year. So free cash I equate it to kind of filing a tax return with Department of Revenue as to how we ended FY '18. We look at how we compared to our budgetary revenues and what our turnbacks were from the expenditure side. So on the revenue side, we had $689,093.41. Just to remind you that it was the first time that we had excise, meals excise tax on our revenue source. The town meeting approved it. We were allowed to budget for $20,000 in the first year, and we received $23,800.
Oh,
So that was the differential. In FY '19, we were able to use $27,000 as a budgetary number. Motor vehicle is always our highest. The amount that we get more than what we budget, that was $312,000 over our estimates. Again, we budget conservatively, prudently conservatively. Per the Strategic Budget Committee, this goes back a couple years, we've been increasing our local receipts by 2% each year. So most of that increase I kind of throw into motor vehicle because it's the largest number. And the other numbers that I just want to highlight, licenses and permits, that's mainly from the building department. And this next sheet actually shows you the detail on the revenue side. So you can see that we budgeted $1,004,825 and we received $1,317,186.
Now, of all of them, that's the one thing you absolutely can't count on happening again.
Right. Although I have thanked many who have bought a vehicle. I believe I was
Yes.
at the Board of Selectmen. No, I'm serious, I do thank them. Yeah.
I was there.
So
Yes.
be a good citizen and buy a new car, right?
Well, I'm not saying that you should, but it does help us. Miscellaneous revenue, we had $55,777. Again, you do have a detailed sheet on that. Most of that was for the insurance for the claim we had upstairs. We chose not to utilize those funds at that time because we weren't making a permanent solution. We did transfer that money into the stabilization account at the fall town meeting. And again, miscellaneous is a non-budgeted item. I don't budget anything under miscellaneous. Anything that comes in actually adds to free cash. The unencumbered unexpended appropriation, it was $482,740.56. Again, these are the highlights from there. Just to remind you that we did transfer $55,000 into the school transportation account at the Springtown meeting. So had we not done that, we would have had 0 turnbacks under that account. I think everything else is pretty self-explanatory. Health insurance, again, we do have the waiver program, so we do budget on the census. We budget on the census plus 5 family lives as of February. So we're planning now for the next fiscal year. Now, my crystal ball is not that good. I don't know who's coming, who's going, especially on the school side. We have a lot of movement there. But even on the town side, we have 2 people that are joining the opt-out program. Opt-out or waiver? Which one? I get them confused. When you have insurance and you're leaving. It's the opt-out.
Opt-out.
Opt-out, as of January. So that, I wouldn't have known
This January?
this January, yeah. So they'll get a prorated amount. They were in health insurance for over a year, so they'll get something prorated in June. So we do watch that. We do budget an extra 5 families. So we did have a turn back of $144,000. Unemployment, again, we budgeted higher than that. We had a great year for unemployment, so we were able to turn back $37,000 there. The street lighting and building. We did do a reserve fund transfer in June last year because we met around June 12th. And we weren't going to meet again, and we didn't know how the year was going to end up. So they did turn back money, but really the money came from the reserve fund. We did transfer it in at the end of June. Those would have been a little closer. And then salaries, you'll notice most of them are the 24/7. And you really can't budget to 0 police, fire, ambulance, and even highway. The only comment I have to make on the police department is we did transfer $25,000 at the special town meeting in the fall because Chief Foley was retiring. So had we not transferred that money in, we would have closed the year with $618,000.
Zero, yeah.
Yeah. Selectmen, we did have some, we had a new town administrator, so there was some turn back there. Normally that would be 0. But other than that, those are our 24/7, you can't budget. It's not like this building where you're budgeting 30 hours times 52 weeks equal this number. The 24/7, we do have to budget, so there's money for those emergencies. We did take a hit on school choice out. In June, we receive on the final cherry sheet payment, we also received the final cherry sheet assessment for school choice out. So that was $58,000 that we took a hit on. There was some additional state aid that we received above what was budgeted of $16,000. So from the highlights, free cash was certified at $1,321,622. And like I said, I did provide the revenues. I provided the detail on the miscellaneous receipts.
What's been the trend on school choice out? Over
School
the last
choice out has
5 years,
been-
has it been up, down,
It's
steady?
been up,
Been heading up, I think,
yeah. And,
unfortunately.
I don't like to repeat myself, but maybe the second time we went for an override, I told them you have to look at a couple numbers. One would be school choice out, one would be BVT, and the other one would be Norfolk Aggie. Because those are direct hits to the budget.
And we have no control over them.
No control over it. You still have to fund it net school spending, so that was ticking itself up. When you receive the budget books, I actually provide a history on school choice out because it's one of the categories that I feel is
You gotta pay attention to.
you have to pay attention
It's
to.
critical.
Got to try to reverse that.
And
Yep.
I think the override will do that. We did put additional funds into the school department. I think they're looking for stability. As parents, you're looking for stability, so.
I
hopefully
think
that
he
helped.
has had some initiatives. I don't know whether he's undertaken them. Is there a meeting coming up that might enlighten us all as to how the school is doing this year and whether or not they've moved forward with some
If
of
you'd
the
like to make an
plans?
invitation, we'll pass it along.
I'm just wondering if there was anything already planned. All right, well, let me give it some thought. Okay.
Because that's not something they have to look prospectively for. It's an update.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about, I have a sense of what has been going on, but it's not my place, I don't think. and
Okay.
The superintendent can explain it.
I'll buy that.
It's good stuff. I mean,
He's trying to do initiatives. I know that if you go and do any of listen to the school board meetings, you'll hear initiatives and everything else. So you're following, if you have kids in the school.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. I don't, and so I'm not, and I have 3 grandchildren. They're not in school yet. And they don't even live in Douglas, but they keep me busy. So, but I'm really excited about some of the stuff that he was talking about. So.
Matt, what's the latest on this property and casualty insurance that you gave us last time?
There isn't the latest. We've been,
Looks like we're going to get a hit. That's what you're
we will,
thinking,
yeah.
because
We
of some
definitely will.
stuff.
There's no escaping that. We've been gathering data. I have asked them to quote us a couple of coverage changes, see where that puts us. We were tragically underinsuring our IT network. We were only insuring about $67,000. That doesn't get you much in the world of computing, so. But there's a couple of those changes. Why would we get a hit? Because we have huge claims.
Well, you have the flooding, total police cruiser. I mean,
Police cruisers are a drop in the bucket compared to the problem at the school.
Oh, really?
Water is not our friend.
okay.
So the school was, while it was under construction though, correct?
No, recently.
This year,
Another one?
The science labs,
See,
So
we're
there's
not
a very
aware of
small
that. That's,
copper pipe that feeds a typical little sink in a lab.
Yeah.
It burst. The best estimate, it burst sometime late on Friday or early on a Saturday.
I was on, oh,
It showed up
no.
Monday morning with
Oh, no.
6 to 8 inches of water and 5 or 6 classrooms.
this is before the
Shut
special
down a whole
town
wing of the
meeting.
school.
Yeah.
did it drain the water tank? I mean, really?
Well,
That's a lot of water.
It's a lot of water. So Maya's reserve, now mindful of the fact that the reserve's gonna be a lot higher, it should be a lot higher than the claim, because you're gonna give yourself a cushion. But their reserve is 800,000. So if the claim is paid out at 650 or 700, that's a big claim, that's gonna hurt us. It's not, I'm not laughing as it's funny, I'm laughing
Yeah.
as it's sad. That's a really big problem. We keep having problems with those buildings. We are proactively suggesting changes to the way they monitor their water use. Modern sensor technology
Yeah.
has come a
Right.
long way.
Sounds wonderful.
Yikes.
So Bob Sullivan over at Water has some suggestions.
And what year was it where the snowplow driver noticed the problem with the high school in the entryway?
Yeah,
Was that 2 years ago?
2 years before me, 2
Yeah.
years ago.
Was it the high school?
That-
The middle
That
school?
was, no, I think that was the high school too, because I think they redid the entry to the high
The
school.
middle school, your problem there was?
Water.
Water, but it was
That was from,
That was from the roof.
that
the
was a
roof,
roof.
it was a snow, I wanna say there was a snow buildup.
Yeah, there was 2 issues there. There was one when they were in the construction,
Yeah.
they were redoing the roof, and they had the torrential rainstorm that leaked into the gym floor, and then there was the other one that went down.
That was the elementary gym floor, wasn't it?
No, it was the
No,
middle
that-
school,
that
I
was
thought.
middle- It was middle
Yeah,
school.
and then there was the other one that, after they had fixed that, then it ended up leaking down into the cafeteria on the second floor was the other one, and it was like all the books and stuff, I guess they had in the storage
Yeah,
room.
we did have a small claim for that. And then this building, that's the
Yeah.
30 something thousand in this building. Water is not our friend.
It's not anyone's friend.
No.
Except when you need a drink.
True.
Gene, anything else?
I'm sorry?
Anything else?
Unless you have questions.
Nope. So the 1321622 was the free cash for fiscal 18.
That was certified as the close, and that's what's available in FY19. We have spent money from that at the fall town meeting. Again, we transferred some money to stabilization, and I don't think I have that with me. I don't have the fall town meeting with me.
the fall one, is that the one?
Then Gene, this says revenue estimates. Is that,
No, cross that off.
Or you mean
Got
this
it.
one, Gene, is this the same?
yep,
That's the one I'm looking for. Thank you.
okay.
So to go back, we transferred 17,500 to OPEB, 32,390 to the stabilization. We also put money into the capital projects.
Yeah.
I don't have the 60,000 for the LED street light account and the library heating and weatherization.
She's reading from the minutes.
Welcome.
So I'm anticipating that our next step should be meeting with department heads. Who do you think might be completed with their budget that could come in to see us at our next meeting, February 12th? Is police done? Fire, ambulance, highway?
We could just do all the town hall functions in one fell swoop. Selectmen, finance,
We usually do our last
I know you do,
because of health insurance. We usually do police
nice try.
first. Police, highway, and Adam are our top choices. Do you not like those for your top
I don't.
choices? Can we get back to you? Do you need to know tonight?
I don't, but I had it
surprise you?
on my mental, my little brain.
I mean, for a number of reasons, police might be ready to go.
Right.
Before we start the budget, the department reviews, though, would we get a chance to see from you what the global look is? When would we see that?
I think you're still a little too early.
Yeah. I don't
By
think
February
that-
12th, I think we're just about getting our numbers in.
Okay.
I think the problem is putting too many assumptions or swags. Because then you get numbers on the table that you know are gonna change. So I would say, ask me on February 10th,
Yeah.
and we'll give you a real solid answer on whether February 12th is doable or not.
Okay.
I think we'd be able to talk about revenue estimates on the 12th.
That would be
I think we'll have the
good.
governor's numbers.
Yeah.
We'll
That's-
be able to put those in.
Yeah, okay.
That would be good. Do we have any reserve fund transfers
Not at this time.
or vouchers or anything? Town report, I'm working on it, sort of.
I can give you last year's reserve fund history.
Good. That'll be helpful. Thank you. I don't have the minutes with me. Or do
They
I?
are in the packet.
You do have them.
They're in here. Yep.
Good. That's, I've got them. I just found them.
Yep.
Everybody said, go look.
I move to approve the meeting minutes for Tuesday, November 13th, 2018.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dick. Thank you, Howard. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Right?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Very nice. Any old business? Or new business?
Just this issue with the member shortage solutions beyond the current membership. I saw someone did reach out to the town administrator. Have we,
I'm sorry?
moderator, good point.
Moderator and the town administrator. I sent that one out too.
Yeah. And have we heard
I
back?
think I copied you. No, I have not.
He did. He said something about shaking a tree.
He said he was, yes, that's
I
right.
did see that.
Okay.
Shake
Said
it
he's going to
to
shake the
Okay.
tree more
All right.
vigorously.
Okay, all right.
So-
I guess we can wait a little while to see how the tree shakes. Yes, fair
No,
enough.
maybe in the next few days I'll send him a note and ask him
As
how.
long as we don't lose sight of it.
No.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, So is there any other business to come before the Finance Committee?
I'll ask Chief Miglianico if he can go the 12th.
Thank you. Thank you.
One more I think about, he should be ready.
Okay. And then
We'll
we'll,
be excited too, to be the first. Be selected to be the first, it's cool.
First in the door.
Major award.
right.
If you phrase it positively, maybe they'll jump on board.
So what was the thought about a joint meeting with the school committee?
I just don't, I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah,
you know, with
let's talk it out a little bit.
with their plans and how their budget, they're working with their budget and
I
et
think
cetera,
if
et
you try to
cetera.
get the update and the budget all in one night, you're gonna be overwhelmed.
Yep,
Yeah, oh yeah,
It's
I agree.
appropriate to ask them for where they are
Short
with everything
meeting.
and then see whether their budget meets.
Right. Yep. Okay. When do you want to do that? Want to do that after the 12th? We'll just visit with them and continue with our budget reviews, but do it on the 26th would be. Oh, is that? No, that's not a holiday, is it? No.
No, I think the
What holiday
holidays
would
will
that
be.
be?
Isn't
It's,
there
it's the-
February school vacation?
it's the week.
Duh.
Oh,
It's the week before that, it's the week after the 12th. The 18th.
Oh, well.
through-
Yeah, well, then good. Then I don't have to bring them back from vacation. I don't want to step on those toes.
President's Day.
the
Yes,
18th.
that's
I was
Yeah,
thinking
the
the
18th.
26th. She
Yeah,
said,
right,
I was
right.
like, what holiday is that?
You don't know of any Tuesday midweek holidays?
Tuesday after President's Day.
So the
I don't have any holidays
26th, if we can do it. Go, Lynn.
So, when's the big town meeting? April,
May.
May?
Sixth.
Okay.
Hey, what's the date this year?
I believe
First?
sixth, the first, sixth.
6th, okay.
right.
At 8 p.m., May 6th.
Matt, is there usefulness to putting this committee together with the school committee before the school committee comes to us with its proposed budget?
You're asking me?
I am. Just your
Howard has all
thoughts.
the
Just your
questions.
thoughts.
It shows interest.
It's a complex operation. I
Yeah.
think you gotta give them a couple bites at the apple. Do you want the whole committee or do you want because it's different, right? You're asking the decision-making body what their intentions are, what their vision is, versus asking the administration what they've been doing.
Good point.
So it's a different meaning.
Say that again, that last part, if you can.
It's kind of like the same thing. I mean, if you ask me,
Yep.
I'm going to ask you a sort of a spreadsheet-driven answers. If you have a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen, you're going to take the policy discussion to a higher level. They're making the policy. So the school committee is going to sort of, what are they going to do? They're going to give you general parameters, but also
Yeah.
what their aspirations are. The administration is going to,
Here's what's
be right
happening.
there. Here's what's happening, here's
Yeah.
what I've done. I think that might be if you were asking what I would do, I would say that's my first conversation. What have you done this year? You got this much in the budget last year, plus a chunk of the
enough.
override. So what exactly, how have you repositioned or attempting to reposition parts of the school department to be more competitive, to keep students here and get better results? Ask that question of the administration. And then the school committee can advise you on what it is, how they want to go from here. How are they going to work with the administration for the next couple of years, policy-wise, to keep the initiative going? It's not a one-year thing.
Right.
It's not a one-year fight. It's a
Okay.
marathon, not a sprint. All right.
2 meetings.
At least,
Yeah.
because you have to understand how the school works itself before just the funding and everything else, and how that all flows, and how they budget to their resources, and how No Child Left Behind, special ed.
All of the
It's
mandates.
a huge. huge, and there's a lot of unknowns because they can't predict, kind of like the crystal ball. They cannot predict who's going to move in, who's going to move out,
right.
where their costs are going to be, what new initiative is going to come down the pipeline. So,
The only thing they have in their favor is we're budgeted salary expense on our side. They have one line and school choice. I'm not saying their job is easy by any means, but they're not as, Matt has 10 departments underneath him, but he can't move money from the selectmen to IT without town meeting,
Yeah.
even though they all fall under his jurisdiction. So they do have a little more flexibility than we do on our side. But again, it's difficult. I'm not saying it's easy by any means.
Do students choose to come to Douglas from other towns?
We do have school
Yeah.
choice in.
Do you know
yes.
what that percentage of the total student population is?
I don't know what the percentage is, but school choice in is spent without appropriation, so it's kind of like in its own special revenue account. Last year in FY 19, our school choice receiving tuition is $747,000. So that's spent by the school committee without appropriation.
It's interesting because you actually don't see that written down anywhere. I mean, except for, it's not even in the total school budget. Because
The school business manager does include it on their spreadsheet as a funding source. She'll
on
put
the
total
funding
budget-
source
Yeah, so she
one,
will.
yes.
You see the number because I give it to you.
Yeah.
That's one of the numbers that I actually do a history on.
Right.
But it's in special revenue, so you don't,
It doesn't flow through the town,
Right.
and then we don't appropriate it. It goes directly to school. It's a direct shot.
not unlike any of their other grants too. There are a number of grants they receive that you don't see. On the annual town report, I put the balance in there. So you'll see how the special revenue accounts closed as of June 30. But you don't see the detail.
I'm just curious because you always hear about people trying to go to a different school, but you don't hear much about somebody saying, I'm dying to come into Douglas, you know.
If my memory serves me, Webster is the
yeah.
primary source of postings.
Yeah.
It has been. Of course, teachers are allowed to have their own students come because they come here and teach, and they're here with their kids all day then.
But the concept is, I think Gene said that in part from monies from the override, and with this school new direction or direction with a little more funding, concept is both probably those after-school programs and the academic programs that I think the superintendent outlined well last year. Concept is over the next couple of years to start to change that number, to start to have more parents from outside the district be
Right.
drawn into the district, right? The money is spent to increase revenue. Correct? Not correct?
Right, and I think he wanted to start some initiatives
Yeah.
to make Douglas a magnet type, whatever you want to call it, so that it would help educational everywhere. I mean, if somebody in Northbridge, say, it doesn't have a course available, that Douglas is providing a very good course, then certainly the kiddos can come here.
And to reverse the trend going out. So I
Sure.
think that's,
Right.
keep the money in district.
I think the thing to keep in mind with that, though, and I've said this before at a couple of the other meetings, is it's important that we not get dependent upon that. That's the thing that to me, you know,
It's tough.
because, you know, right now, you can look at it as though it's, you know, we're marketing for those students.
Yeah.
You know, so you're always trying to draw the students in. But as soon as you draw them in, the town that you drew them
Sure.
from,
Yeah.
it's a tug of war. They're
Yeah,
going to then
competition.
they're going to then do the next initiative to try and draw them back
Right.
or keep
Yep.
the students
Yep.
that they then have. So I think to try and, you know, it's kind of like Matt's example of using our free cash money for capital projects and relying upon that for capital projects. It's okay if you've got the money and to use it now, but to say we're going to have that 5 years from now, not
Right.
necessarily true.
It's a
Because
bad model.
our superintendent could take on these initiatives and get all these kids from Uxbridge, Northbridge, Millbury, Sutton, et cetera. And then 3 years from now, their superintendents could take
Sure.
on similar initiatives and get them all back. So you're in this constant ebb and flow up and down. And again, if you're trying to bring stability to a budgeting, I think, you know, if you have that available, that's great, but watch out for when the pendulum swings the other way. Just kind of keep that in your mind as we're going through these.
I mean, that's the rough part of looking at education and finances. Because education, I just soon do whatever we can do to have the whole valley benefit educationally.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, I don't really care about finances. I didn't say that, did I? But I mean, really, I'm interested in having these kiddos get interested in school, interested in learning, and continue on and be successful people.
And I know it's a tough thing to kind of crack and get through, but that's why, like, I think last year we had this conversation with the superintendent, and I asked, you know, have we thought about, you know, combining efforts with neighboring towns? So maybe Douglas becomes the math and science center, and Northbridge becomes the English and history center, you know, and
Yeah.
depending upon what students'
Do a
interests
combined
are,
effort.
you do a combined effort. So instead of teaching with 5 kids in a high school class of advanced math, you're bringing kids from other towns, you know?
I just love that
Again,
idea.
it takes coordination, communication, and a lot of combined effort. But as you're saying, Pam, you know, the end goal is just to provide the best education system that we can to the students
Yeah.
and let them benefit. If we
Yeah.
can reap some economies of scale and some efficiencies along the way,
Yeah.
all the better.
Anybody want to hash out any more problems of the world?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, thank you, Howard.
Second.
Oh, my, seconded. All those in favor?
Right?
Aye. Very nice. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming, Matt.